Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:32. Adjustments to the agenda.
I do have a couple. Number one is delete under new business 12.26, which is the ed tech. We will have to re-advertise that. Then add under new business under 12.26, Kimberly LaPlante, a member of the PLCSS. That's informational, but I do want you to know that. And then a correction under new business 12.23, Colleen Johnson. It's grade 6 ELA and grade 8 math. And that's it.
Motion to accept the board meeting agenda as adjusted.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Any recognitions this evening?
No.
Hearing none. Consideration of minutes, regular board meeting, August 23rd, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Corrections, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Consent agenda minutes, Personnel Committee meeting, August 23rd, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Corrections, adjustments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Any presentations this evening?
No.
At this time, would anybody from the public like to address the board? Report from the superintendent.
I do have a few things to bring to your attention tonight. First is that on Wednesday, September 28th, there will be a policy committee meeting at the central office at 5 p.m. There will be a review of policies. They are EA, which is student transportation, employee requirements, training and responsibilities. And with that comes EEA-R, which is the drug and alcohol testing of school bus drivers, administrative procedures that needs to be updated. IJNDB, which will be the student computer and internet use and internet safety. Along with IJNDB is E, which is the acknowledgement form, and R, which is the student and computer internet use rules. Those were last looked at in 2009, so it's been 7 years, and the internet and computer and technology has changed a lot over 7 years. That's a long time in the computer world. Also, we'll be looking at JBA, which is a new policy, and that is transgender student guidelines. We have contacted both MSMA and Drummond Woodsum for their guidelines, which we will have for that meeting. Next would be JICH, which is a policy on the chemical use and/or possession by students. Next would be JK, which is student discipline. And then I did not write down the letters because I just added them tonight. One is on student eligibility, and the others will be on staff conduct with regards to internet and things of that nature as well. Again, policies that we need to talk about as times have changed. So that's September 28th at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Moving forth. Whoops, I'm sorry.
I want to let you know that today, under the guidance of Great Schools Partnership, along with Marianne and Cal and Larry, we brought together ELA teachers from K through 12. It was a great day. I just want to read a quick note that Marianne passed on, and she said that I would like to take a few minutes to tell you what a great day we had at central office under Craig Kesselheim's facilitation. He's the fellow from Greater Schools Partnership. What a great job the teachers did. It was so impressive as they dug right in and worked so hard. It was clear to me that the students are at the center of every decision. The group worked hard to ensure that the decisions made were in the students' best interest, and several times it was about meeting student needs and providing the best education possible. Truly impressed with their observations and professionalism. Moreover, the cohesion and respect from K through 12 was great. It was so great that we all agreed we did not need norms, but that we could work on doing things together. And, you know, it was just one of those, what we're doing is we're looking at the courses and preparing our students for a proficiency-based diploma, which will be in 2021. And that starts actually with this year's fourth grade by the time that the complete proficiency-based diploma has all 8 standards taken care of. So we're looking at this as a K through 12 initiative, and I just wanted you to know that today we started with ELA, and a week from today, right? The 20th, excuse me. On the 20th, math would be our next one. And I'm proud to say that when we finish today, that we did agree to the graduation standards that are required through the state. So we are moving forward, and we told you when we took over now 2 years ago, when you look at school years, that this would be a K through 12 initiative for this district, and we are moving in that direction. Next, I want to give you some enrollment figures of when we started. These will change, but when we met after Labor Day, we took some figures. We have currently, in K through 5, we had 226 students registered. 6 through 8, we had 105, and 9 through 12, we had 184, for a total of 514, which when we looked at last year's October figures, we were at 498. So we are above our numbers. We have to provide numbers October 1 to the state. So we will bring back any adjusted figures next board meeting. But that is an increase over last year. Just if you hear about the NCLB report card, which was provided, they say 2015-16. What you need to understand is that these results were from 14-15, which is when we were still part of the larger RSU 20. They do not break it down by schools, so this report will be filed. It really doesn't mean anything to us at this point. So we'll see what happens next year, and then it won't be NCLB, it will be ESSA. So that's under Building and Grounds. Bear with me. The last report I have is that on Saturday, the magnet school, which is now being referred to as the Maine Ocean School. I don't know if I made enough copies. If you guys could share that, and I'll share this with you. The Maine Ocean School met. I've provided the board with sort of a synopsis of the minutes, just so that people have it for a record. I'm a member right now of the Board of Trustees and the Program Committee. And the Program Committee, we discussed curriculum, admissions, calendar, and school approval. Under curriculum, we talked about the design of courses based upon STEM concept and the school, which is the Maine Ocean School. We discussed proficiency-based diploma requirements, as well as standards and assessments. The last two making sure that we talked about, the RSU 20 course of study. Admissions, discussion centered around management, requirements, and the process. Calendar based upon state statutes and summer programs. And the other item is the school approval, which is required by the state of Maine. Then the Board of Trustees met and talked about the use of RSU 20 facilities, and discussion was brought up about the Stockton Elementary School as well as the high school. The information, I spoke up after the report was made and stated that any requests or information requires school board action, that any shared personnel or the use of the Maine Ocean School students in RSU 20 classes would require, again, board discussion and board approval. And then we also talked about bylaws. The next meeting will be it'll be on October 1st. I believe that's the first Saturday of October. And you're all invited to that again. And there is going to be a website which carries more information, which is found at the Maine Ocean School. And that's my report. I'll answer any questions if people have them.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move forward. 10.1, Finance Committee. Finance Committee met this evening. Very brief meeting. We're on track. No alarming financial data to speak of. Personnel Committee.
We met tonight, and it'll be,
Buildings, Grounds, Transportation.
We met briefly tonight. Really one agenda item which fell through. Nothing really to the table here for discussion this evening.
We have no old business this evening. New business, consideration approval of lease purchase of a school bus.
so moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Every year, if a school system is going to purchase buses and have state funding 2 years after, there's an application process, and there's a deadline. Unfortunately, last year, the way the dates were read, we missed the deadline. As a result of that, RSU 20 was put on what's called a waiting list under second approval. We did receive the approval to be on the waiting list. The key factor here is that there are no buses available to be approved anymore by the state. Therefore, any bus purchase would have to be done solely by RSU 20. There was a bus that was brought up in anticipation that RSU 20 would gain approval into the second approval waiting list. That did not happen. Therefore, it is the recommendation of the superintendent and business manager, as well as the transportation director, that that bus be sent back, and we will not be purchasing a bus this year.
So the motion reads consideration of approval.
Right, that has changed. So you'd have to withdraw your motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'll second the withdrawal.
So I guess the new motion, if somebody wants to make it, needs to be
Approval of the lease.
no consideration of no lease or purchase
For this year.
for this year for the 2016-17 school year, correct?
Correct.
Do you even need a motion, because we can't do it?
We should have them.
Well, the board approved a lease agreement initially for this year's budget, correct?
Correct.
So we need to unapprove that motion.
We need it in the form of a motion so that we will not be purchasing or leasing a bus.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? You have a question, I can tell.
I just don't think you need a motion because we
This-
made a
this-
motion to,
This board made a motion to enter into a lease or purchase agreement of a school bus for the 2016-17 school year
but if we
through the budget. So now, we have to remove our approval.
The reason being is that we could purchase the bus, or we could lease the bus, but we would have to pay for that bus without any state reimbursement. And by this motion, there is no authority given to the superintendent to purchase or lease a bus. You're telling me, even though it's in the budget, because we won't get the money back.
So my question is just to clarify the logistics of where the missing of that deadline puts us for, really clarify what you said as a distinction of the list that we're on now. We're on a list for secondary approval. Can you explain that part for me again?
For this year, what happens is if your request is not approved, then you go on what's called a secondary list. Whereas if a school district, let's just use an example, was approved for 4 bus purchases, and they only chose to purchase 2, because their budget came back that they could only lease 2, then there would be 2 buses that would then go back into the pool, which is the secondary pool.
Okay.
Because districts, the number did not reach where we were on the waiting list, we were left out of having the opportunity to acquire a bus this year.
So we're somewheres on that secondary list. I'm guessing somewheres low.
When I spoke to,
Pat Hinckley,
what is her name?
Patricia Hinckley.
Thank you. She said that second round was completed, and we didn't have the age or the mileage, that there was a couple buses before us, even after the round was completed, so there was not much, if any, hope she gave us for making it this year.
Gotcha, okay. So that's the second piece of it, is wondering whether or not there's the possibility that a bus will come up, right? And you're telling me that doesn't feel like that's the case. But the good news here is that, as we had discussed this at length during last budget cycle, our bus fleet is in very good shape, and it's probably also part of the reason why we didn't qualify for that bus in this instance, being on the secondary list.
Our bus fleet is in good shape, except that we are concerned with our handicap buses.
Right, yeah.
Which we will reapply for this year. We did not fall out of the
So that's my follow-up question.
Rotating.
thank you.
Right, that's
the
my follow-up
rotation.
question, is where that positions us for
No,
rotation
we're
for
still
next
in the
year.
rotation.
Okay, so that level of priority, we retain that. Okay.
So, does that mean that next year we can budget for an extra one because we missed one?
No.
And why is,
What we would do is,
why is that?
we would apply for 2 again and base our budget, and we would base our budget on that. We would not apply for 3. We'll apply for the 2 again, because our handicap, we may look at a small handicap bus and a larger handicap bus.
Do we have buses in the fleet that are approaching 300,000 miles?
I could not answer that for you right now.
I can, if a lot of you remember the discussion we had in the budget meetings, was that because of the amount of buses we inherited and the amount of miles that we put on every year, there's gonna come a point within our cycle where we're not gonna get a bus because our buses are gonna be too low mileage to qualify for. So we actually discussed not taking any buses this year, but didn't wanna fall out of line, because in 2 years, we don't get that revenue for the reimbursement of the bus. So in hindsight, what actually happened is what we discussed, because it's eventually gonna happen with us anyway. If we get 2 buses every year, in the course of 3 sessions, we're not gonna qualify for a bus anyway.
I understand that, but my concern is the age of some of the buses that are on the road in terms of miles and the students that ride them.
Yeah, there's a list of mileage that we were given when we assumed the buses, and that's what the analysis was done of the fleet we had, the mileage we put on per year, and the cycle.
Correct, and I do recall that Tony's statement about the fact that we were eventually going to reach that threshold of not qualifying for one because of the low mileage across the board. I remember that part of that data did include full mileage for all the buses, and that there were none at that time that approached 300,000 miles. And I do recall that we also talked about the intent was to only stand in line for one bus this next budget cycle, so 2 is that extra. You know what I mean?
I see your point,
Yeah.
but I would, encourage us to take a look
Right.
at our fleet,
Push that limit, yeah.
Before we make decisions like this, a lot of times, it would
Yep.
be nice to have the information on what our fleet looks
Yeah.
like.
If you know a tail light that's out, just say the number, Jerry, and we'll have
If
somebody
we,
go on.
if we had access to Wi-Fi here, we could get onto Neo and we
Yeah.
could see the whole list and the mileage and the years, but I'm still waiting for them to give me access to Wi-Fi.
I have it. We have one bus, the highest is 275,415. We have another bus that we would mark down for replacement at 245,573, and another at 242,144. The other part about it is and I know that Pat had a slide presentation, and you have bus replacement, and there is 2 types of application as well as addition, and one of them is to replace an existing bus that's lost due to emergency, or replace an existing bus near the end of useful life. And a couple of one especially handicapped buses at that, we're reaching that end of useful life. And it's not 300,000, but it's close.
So there's still a motion on the table not to approve a bus purchase lease for 2016-17. All those in favor? Opposed?
4-1.
Yes.
4-1. Motion carries. Moving on to 12.2, consideration approval of the following nominations or recommendations. Van driver, Leon Howard.
Can we go and take them all at once?
Motion on the floor to take them all as one. Any discussion? All those in favor of taking 12.21 to 12.26? Or is 12.26 just an informational?
Deleted.
That was deleted, and what we did was we added Kim LaPlante on there as informational,
Okay.
because she's gonna be on the PLCSS
Okay, so
committee.
12.21 to 12.25.
Correct.
Motion is to take them all at once. All those in favor? 12.2 now reads, consideration and approval of the following nominations. Leon Howard, van driver. Margaret Allen, educational technician 3. Colleen Johnson, 6th grade ELA, 8th grade math. Georgina Baker, halftime middle school guidance, counselor, first year probationary contract. Michael Seekins, part-time custodial for Stockton Springs Elementary School.
Move to accept.
As always, there's no discussion with personnel. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. 12.26 now is just a informational Kimberly LaPlante as member of PLCSS.
Yes.
You just want to let people know what that is?
That,
Are you doing that one before the other two?
yes, what that is the PLCSS is the Teachers Recertification Committee, and that's a volunteer position, But she is added to it because there was an opening, and we wanted to bring that forth so the board knew that that committee is full, and that it's a recommendation of the superintendent.
.3, consideration of approval of increase in stipend for the Title I coordinator.
Motion and,
Second.
Discussion?
that is a, reason that's on there, because we did these at the last, board meeting, is I made a mistake as far as the amount and the grant, and I'm looking at Deanna, was 9,000, it should have been 11,000, or was it 7,000, it went up to 9,500. I don't have it in front of me, so. 9,000 and 9,500. Just a $500 increase, but you should have a motion, Tix.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. 12.4, consideration of approval of an increase in the price for adult lunches per DOE. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
That came directly from the DOE when they reviewed our application, and it went from, I knew I was going to forget this. It went to $5, yes. That's required by the state. They tell us what we have to charge, so folks, if you want hot lunch, it's $5.
In about 2 minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's officially $5. Date and time, location, next board meeting. It'll be at Stockton Springs, September 27th. Will there be any prior meetings?
Not at this point.
Not at this point. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Bill, are you gonna be there for the 27th?
Yes, before we adjourn. We have the policy committee, I think the date given was 9/28, it should be 9/27, correct?
It's going to be that Wednesday.
Oh, it's going to be Wednesday, it will be,
Right.
so
It's
that
so
will be
long.
the 28th.
Yes,
And
it's so
that'll-
long.
And that'll be at the district office?
Central office, yes.
Okay.
Motion on the table to adjourn. All those in favor?